Good evening. We're calling this meeting to order at 4:45 on Tuesday, June 24th. And I'm just going to read very quickly the acknowledgement of meeting status. Members of the public may directly address the board by attending in-person meetings and submitting a public comment card. The board will not take public comment through the online platform and does not guarantee online streaming should that platform malfunction for any reason. Members of the public are encouraged to share their thoughts and concerns with our board president, Maddie Cloud, at mcloud@petk12.org if they're not able to attend in person. Comments from the public on closed session items. There is no public. We adjourn to closed session. I call this meeting to order. I have no public report from closed session. Please stand for Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, so we are going to start our public hearings. The first public hearing is on contract reopeners with Petaluma Federation of Teachers, Adult Educators, and the Petaluma City Elementary and the Petaluma Joint Union High School districts. Do we have any comments on the reopeners? Nothing? Okay. We will go on to the public hearing, contract reopeners with PFT and the Petaluma City Elementary and Petaluma Joint Union High School districts for a successor agreement.
When it's public hearing, you got.
Oh, when it's a public hearing? Open for the public hearing on the successor agreement. No comments. Closed. Now we have a public hearing on the Petaluma Accelerated Charter School. And I have several comment cards here. So it's public hearing has begun. I'm just going to read the public comment, our board language around public comment, and then we'll begin. Under Government Code Section 54954.3A, members of the public have the right to address the governing board on any items of interest, providing it relates to the subject matter jurisdiction of the school district. While Government Code allows speakers to criticize the district's policies, procedures, programs, services, and/or employees, the district does have a policy, BP 1312.1, specific to complaints against employees. The topic of interest within the jurisdiction of the board. Should comments from the public pertain to a certain district employee, the board requests that the complaint first be submitted in writing to the employee's immediate supervisor for investigation. If the comment is about something that is not on the agenda, it will be heard only during the public comment on non-agendized items, period. Once that part of the meeting is over, comments will only be taken on agenda items, which this is an agenda item, during the discussion of those items. The board values public comments, and although we cannot take action or discuss items not on the agenda, we listen carefully and appreciate input from the public. Public comments are subject to a 3-minute per person limit or a 20-minute limit per subject matter. Commenters may not exceed their time to others. Okay, so I think you'll all get 3 minutes, and we will start with Susie Stark-German.
Hello, my name is Susie Starkey-German, and I spoke at the last meeting. And I want to thank you again for the thoughtful work you're doing to consider what's best for the PAC students. Tonight, I'm back to speak from a place of realism. School starts August 13th and the clock is ticking. With limited time and staffing, we need to be honest about what's actually possible for the upcoming school year and what is not. Here's the heart of it. If the current Spanish teacher is returning next year, most rising eighth graders will opt out if given the option. And many parents will insist on knowing who this instructor is before allowing their students to opt in. This isn't about blame or personal criticism. It's about acknowledging what has been a difficult, widely shared experience across many families. Students left 7th grade feeling they hadn't actually learned Spanish, even if their report cards said otherwise. In our case, it required near constant parent involvement just to manage basic expectations. And even with that support, the learning outcomes were minimal and often demoralizing. If families are being asked to choose Spanish without knowing who is teaching it, it will feel disingenuous, especially for returning students who experienced this year firsthand. That's why I strongly urge PAC's leadership and the district to clarify, will the instructor remain the same? Will families be told before selecting electives? And what happens mid-year if students ask to switch out of Spanish? If there's still doubt about whether the program is working, I'd encourage the board to really study a few key data points. Average Spanish grades compared to core academic subjects over the past 3 years. Student and family feedback on whether the course felt meaningful, and how many PAC students actually placed into Spanish 2, as discussed previously. Let's also be mindful of where we are at. Our interim principal steps down on July 1st, and new site leadership is just beginning. This is not the time to gamble on a class that has been historically a struggle. PACS has an incredible teaching team that has been living and breathing this program for over a decade. They know what has worked and they know what isn't working. A successful Spanish program might be possible down the line, but it's not realistic for fall 2025. Let's trust the educators' recommendations who've built this program and listen to the students who are asking for something different. Let's make space for a student success period, something solid, dependable, and supportive at a time when our kids really need it. Thank you.
Thank you. Katie Gill.
Thanks. All right. Hello, everyone. I'll start off by saying I hope everyone had a chance to read my lengthy emails and the details about the history of PACS and our various Q&As we had back and forth. I thank you guys for taking the time to learn about our school. We don't have current admin present, though. We have our new admin here, which so excited about that. I do ask that you trust Laura and I, who are here, and Elise Roach, who know about our program. So during the discussion later today, if you have questions, we are happy to answer those questions for you. Laura and I have been here since the beginning. That's 10 years now, 10 years in the same classroom for us. So we know that making changes is hard for our community, and we know that it is often met with resistance. But I'm just asking the community to just trust us in knowing that we know what's best for our program and for what our kids need. In the email that I sent you, I sent 4 possible options to help problem solve this. One being eliminate Spanish and add student success, make music required. Option 2, make music and Spanish optional. Students pick between the two and student success is required. Option 3, make Spanish and student success optional between the two and music is required. And then 4 would just leave the charter as is, which would be a repeat of what we did last year, and no student success. There are still 4 core classes, PE, and an elective that wouldn't change. And even with all the 4 options above, all the students would still be taking 8 classes, regardless of the option. I do think it's important to note, and this is where Jason comes in, That every option has different staffing challenges. And as we are a small school, I think oftentimes we don't think about those staffing challenges until it's too late. And the 4 core teachers are trying to fill in those staffing positions. So I do appreciate this process. I appreciate the cabinet learning about us. I would encourage you guys to learn about the other small middle schools. Our district has 4 of them now. And we all have our own little quirks and things that we need to make our schools successful and getting these kids moved on to high school in the best possible way. So, and lastly, I would like to thank our committee
30
that worked with us. We had Megan Hallinan, Noel Mullen, Julie Peterson, Isabel Malara, Laura Clemens, and then Carly Costello help on our committee. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we have Sarah Sharp.
Hi, good evening. My name is Sarah Sharp, and I'm a parent of a rising 7th grader at PAX, as well as a rising 10th grader at Petaluma High. I'm also a bilingual resource specialist at McDowell and McNair Elementary Schools, and I speak today with total respect for who are about to be my own child's teachers, and they're my fellow colleagues in PCS, but I have to speak up on this topic. I have over 20 years of experience teaching multilingual learners, including English language development and French as a world language. I also speak Spanish and use those skills daily. So simply put, the decision to address scheduling, workload issues, staffing issues at PAX by cutting Spanish language classes should be a non-starter to me. World language classes are part of an academically rigorous course of study, and world language is a core academic subject. So we live in a multilingual, globally connected community with roughly 1/3 of students in Petaluma City Schools identifying as Hispanic, meaning of Spanish-speaking heritage. Raising the level of multilingual achievement for all learners is part of building an assets-based approach to language development, as well as an inclusive community. PAX claims to be preparing global citizens, while Petaluma City Schools claims to honor diversity and provide a rigorous and culturally relevant curriculum. Student and family surveys that I had some access to, although my husband interestingly didn't get the message, so I don't know what happened there, reflect some real challenges regarding staffing, workload, and student stress levels. However, as educational professionals, we can't conflate these symptoms with our core values around building skills in multiple languages. So you wouldn't ask families if they would rather have music class over math class. And you wouldn't ask if families were to have music, it's not uncommon for students to choose free or study time over a class, especially if adults haven't done a good job showing them the value of the skills to be gained or creating an atmosphere that supports the goals. The research is clear. Learning multiple languages supports cognitive flexibility, increases an individual's economic opportunities, and reinforces empathy, intercultural communication, and perspective taking. So at this moment in time, we should be uplifting the value of Spanish language development and expanding, not limiting access to world language classes. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Okay, Bailey Malone.
Hello, everyone. I'm Bailey Malone. I'm a parent at McKinley. I have a rising 6th grader and a rising 2nd grader. We've been at the school since my kids were in kindergarten and TK respectively. I'm also on the PTA board and on the site council. So I'm fairly involved in the school and have a pretty good understanding of what the community wants and needs, especially in the lower grades. One of the reasons why we chose McKinley in the first place was because of the access to Spanish language instruction in grades 1 through 6. And we were very disappointed to lose that as a result of funding changes. And I agree with everything the other speakers have said so far, and that I understand that the Spanish language program to date has not been successful or necessarily a good use of students' time. And Spanish is so important, and cutting it entirely before we've really had the ability to look at creative solutions with more support from the district, I think is a little premature. And I would also say that given McKinley's population, we're a diverse school, and cutting Spanish and deprioritizing it from students' development when so many other parts of our school are bilingual and bicultural also just feels wrong. I was formerly on the Tide Committee way back pre-pandemic, and back then we talked about, what could we do to really elevate the importance of Spanish language academically and socially the same way that is expected of English language learners. And we'd really like to get back to a culture where Spanish language instruction is prioritized at McKinley. We also have a new principal who I believe is herself bilingual and will bring an amazing skill set and asset to our community. So I urge everyone to continue looking for creative solutions and changes to the current Spanish program at McKinley in order to preserve and improve upon it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody else that would like to speak to the public hearing on the Petaluma Accelerated Charter School who did not? So just eventually you just have to fill out one of these, but you can do it later.
So my name is Ted Sprague. My daughter is going to be joining PAX as a seventh grader coming from Meadow School. And I don't have all of the information. Somebody alluded to some issues with a previous teacher or a current teacher that created a difficult learning environment. And it seems to me that we are eliminating a vital course of curriculum because a single person can't teach to that curriculum. And for me, as an incoming parent, we chose PAX because it had a Spanish program. If we had known up front that that program might get eliminated, we might have gone to Kenilworth or one of the other schools. And it just seems like while the problem may be real, the solution isn't the right solution to address the problem. It seems like there needs to be more thought into what the root cause of the problem is and address the root cause rather than the symptoms. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else would like to contribute? Okay, the public hearing is closed. Now we have a public hearing on the 2024-2027 LCAP. I did. I had to do it. No comments on the LCAP going forward. Okay, I close the public hearing on the LCAP. And now we have special recognitions, reports, and presentations. Our first up is the introduction of the new principal at Grant Elementary School. Jason.
Thank you. I'd like to invite Christy McCullough to come forward.
Thank you.
So Petaluma City Schools is thrilled to announce the appointment of Christy McCullough as the new principal of Grant Elementary School beginning in the 25-26 school year. Ms. McCullough brings more than 15 years experience in elementary education and is known for her inclusive leadership, deep commitment to student voice, and ability to build thriving school cultures rooted in connection and belonging. Ms. McCullough most recently served as a principal of Chanel Valley Academy, a newly chartered TK6 public school, and before that, she led a K-8 charter school, both in the Ukiah Unified School District. In these schools, she implemented innovative systems that focused on equity, whole child development, and academic excellence. She holds a master's degree in educational leadership, an administrative services credential, and a multiple subject teaching credential with an early childhood emphasis, all from Sonoma State University. Throughout her career, Ms. McCullough has built systems that promote inquiry, creativity, and a growth mindset. She is trained and certified in social emotional learning, project-based learning, and the community schools model, and the community engagement initiative. Ms. McCullough's leadership is grounded in shared vision, real-world learning, and a whole child, whole family approach. Known affectionately by students and families as Ms. Mac, Christy lives in Sebastopol with her husband Jim, horse Max, and enjoys trail running at Helen Putnam Park. She's a proud mother of two grown children, Caspian and Satori, and values time with friends and community. Like the Grant community, she believes that every child is a promise and a possibility. Ms. McCullough shared, "It's a privilege to join a school community and district that is so clearly student-centered. I'm honored to contribute to the tradition of excellence at Grant Elementary School and to represent Petaluma City Schools. I look forward to building meaningful relationships, safe and supportive learning environments, and a connected, joyful school community. Please join us in welcoming Ms. McCullough to the Petaluma City Schools family."
Thank you so much, trustees, district staff, and community members. I'm truly grateful for the opportunity to serve as principal and join the Grant community. I look forward to bringing stability and consistency and to continuing the work that reflects the heart and excellence already at the Grant School. So thank you so much, and I look forward to getting started. Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you. Now we have the introduction of the new principal at McKinley Elementary and Petaluma Accelerated Charter School.
Thank you. We'd like to invite Latricia Donahue to come up. Petaluma City Schools is proud to announce the appointment of Latricia Donahue as the new principal of McKinley Elementary School and Petaluma Accelerated Charter School, beginning in the 25-26 school year. Ms. Donahue brings over 25 years of experience in education with a deep commitment to student success, community connection, and inclusive leadership. Ms. Donahue's journey in education began as a Spanish and electives teacher and evolved into various leadership roles where she consistently championed innovation, equity, and student empowerment. She holds a Bachelor's of Science in Education from the University of Central Florida, a master's degree in Education, Media Design, and Instructional Technology from Full Sail University, and a second master's degree in School Administration from CSU Stanislaus. Born into an Air Force military family, Ms. Donahue spent much of her childhood in countries such as Germany, England, Italy, and Western Asia. These early experiences taught her the value of empathy, cultural exchange, and human connection, which are lessons that continue to inform her leadership philosophy. "I learned that most strangers are friends you haven't met," she shares. "This perspective allows me to listen deeply, especially during challenging moments, and to build bridges between people." Ms. Donahue is passionate about creating learning environments where every student feels inspired and confident in their potential. She shared, "All students have the power to be amazing successes. It's our job as educators to help them imagine a brighter future and to know without question that they are smart enough to achieve it." A proud mother of two amazing, independent, happy, and healthy human beings, Latricia enjoys gardening, reading, dancing, traveling, and building connections within her community. She steps into her new role at McKinley PACS. She is eager to collaborate with staff, students, and families to shape a future grounded in academic excellence, innovation, and joy. Please join us in welcoming Ms. Donahue to the Petaluma City Schools family.
Thank you so much. I'm honored to be here and I'm just excited to get started and start making those connections and memories with the staff, with the community, and my new family. So thank you.
Fast friends. Hey, thank you. Welcome. So now we have comments from the public on special recognition, reports, presentations, and non-agendized items. I have no comment cards. Does anybody want to speak to a non-agendized item now? Okay, moving on. Adoption and approval of the agenda. I need a motion.
I move to adopt and approve the agenda.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, the motion passes. Report on activities and correspondence of school board members. Several of us went to the adult education graduation last night on the playground at Valley Vista, and it was amazing as always. It's just a great achievement for those students. And then did anybody else do an activity that they would like to mention?
I just wanted to add that at the graduation yesterday for adult ed, it was the highest number of high set takers that they had ever had in the history of Petaluma Adult School, which is pretty exciting.
Yeah.
I went to a couple Juneteenth activities and it was just, people are always excited to see someone from the district there. And I saw some of our other school employees at some of the events as well. So yeah, it was good. Yeah.
Very good. Thank you. All right. It was, there was no school, so we still did things. So now we have comments from the public on consent items. This is for the consent agenda. All right, seeing none, I need a motion for the approval of the consent agenda by consolidated motion.
Go for it.
I move to approve the consent agenda by consolidated motion.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Okay.
Yeah,
Yes.
I have a
Ellen?
couple questions on the contracts. First of all, there was oh God, I gotta find it now. There's a partnership that's only going to be at Casa Grande.
Is it the Fox, the nurse?
It's, well, actually, I have two
Okay.
questions about that, but it was, not finding it. I'm not seeing it was, there was a vaping cessation piece and, the nursing piece. And one of them's only at Casa, and I was wondering why. And then, for the nursing piece, how do students get into that program?
Great. So the contract for the nursing is with the Fox Pacific Academy, and that is to provide instruction for our nurse assistant program, which is one of our CTE programs through Casa Grande.
Oh, so that's why it's
Yes.
just, got it.
And then for I'm guessing the second one is the Northern California Center for Wellbeing, which is the Project True Friday Night Live program in youth vaping cessation.
Yes.
That is an annual contract, which is part of our to-pay grant.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Any other questions? All right, we have a motion on the floor. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. We have approved the consent agenda. Now we have comments from the public on action items. All right, we will go on to our first action item. 15.2.1, approval of resolution 2425-65 of the Board of Education of Petaluma City and Petaluma Joint Union High School Districts regarding the authorized designated personnel to sign contract and agreement documents for fiscal year 2025-26.
I move to approve.
I second.
Can you kind of?
It's an annual item for district signers. It's the superintendent, myself, and the deputy superintendent.
The motion is on the floor. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Now we have 15.2.2, approval of resolution 2425-66 of the Board of Education of Petaluma City Elementary and Petaluma Joint Union High School Districts of the County of Sonoma, State of California, appointment member and alternate to Redwood Empire Schools Insurance Group.
I move to approve.
I second.
Amanda?
This is an annual item that puts the CBO as the person authorized for RESIG, which is our insurance JPA, and lists the superintendent as the second person.
Very good. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the motion passes. 15.3.2, 2.3, approval of the leaseback contractor selection for Mary Collins' new classroom building.
Yeah.
I move to approve.
I second.
Amanda?
Sorry, I was excited. I almost just started talking. So, yeah, I'm super excited to bring this project forward tonight. We went through an RFP process for a leaseback for the Mary Collins Cherry Valley new classroom. And we had 13 submissions. We were hopeful for 6. So the fact that we had 13, we ended up having to go through 2 rounds of interviews, and then the selection was made for core construction. And we have a couple of representatives here this evening. You guys want to stand up?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Exciting.
Yeah, so this, if approved by the board tonight, this will start the pre-construction of the new building.
Any comment? Any comments from anybody? Well, thank you. Congratulations. Thank you, Amanda. This is great.
Yes, it is.
Okay, and so we have a motion on the floor. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, yay! The motion passes. Now approval of 15.2.4, approval of energy services agreement with Climatech for district-wide energy conservation measures. I had a couple of questions that I had sent to Amanda earlier. One of them was, how does this overlap with the contract with our facilities master plan? And then also, is it really no money? So anyway, she responded, and I thought that would be great to hear tonight.
Yeah, great. So I'll touch really quick. We also issued an RFPQ for energy management services. And of this, we received 4 submissions, which we were super excited about. Again, 4 is a lot for these type of services. And we held interviews, and Climatech, who Amber is here this evening from Climatech, was selected. The question about the facilities master plan is, through the facilities master plan, we have a broad infrastructure system for HVAC and lighting and the current solar. But what this contract will do will be specific true site assessments on potential energy savings, solar, battery backups, HVAC lighting. And yes, it is the current contract that is being approved by the board is at no cost. So what this contract allows is for Climatech to come in and do single site assessments overall of all of our facilities. And then that report will come back to the board. And if the board decides to move forward with any of the projects and it will be added along with our facilities master plan, part of our bond implementation plan, then Climatech, if we move forward with that, they would receive a 5% fee per project. So just depending on what we decide to use.
And this is bond?
Yes.
Thank you, really a lot. I know that it took a lot for you to answer my question. Does anybody else have any comment?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, thank you. We need a motion.
I move to approve.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, and thank you. Sure we'll be seeing you. And now we have 15.2.5, approval of the 2024-25 confidential employee AB 1200 and salary schedule.
I move to approve.
I second.
Amanda.
All right, this evening, Jason and myself bring forward the AB 1200 and salary schedules for our confidential employees. The salary increase reflects the 2.12 increase that was given on the salary schedule for CSEA. And along with that, they will be getting the insurance increase. And this will be retroed back to July 1.
Oh, that's great. Wonderful. Okay, we have a motion on the floor. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Okay, and now we have 15.3.1 overnight field trip request.
Yes, so Petaluma High School is requesting approval for an overnight field trip for their yearbook class. It's a workshop down in San Diego where students get a little bit deeper into the yearbook kind of course and the 21st century learning, as well as production and best practices around school yearbooks. And they're just requesting approval for that camp.
I just appreciate the breakdown.
Yeah.
The new field trip forms, so. thank
I know,
you
it's like,
for
that's
that.
exactly what we've
Yeah.
been looking for
Yeah.
That's
Perfect.
got
Yeah.
it.
Thank you.
I think we finally have it.
And in July board meeting, we'll bring forward the updated board policy on fees, which is 3260. And hopefully that will help also clarify for schools and us what can be charged and not be charged for students.
Very good. Thank you. Okay, do we have a?
I
motion?
move to approve the overnight field trip request.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Great yearbook. So now we have 0.4.1. Approval of board policy 5131.8 mobile communication devices. So Esmeralda, you're doing it, Tony?
Yes, Esmeralda isn't here. However, this is just a second read. If there's any particular questions or comments, this board policy is pulled partly from CSBA as well as from input from the committee. I don't think there was much changes around this unless I had missed something.
I did ask Esmeralda about, there was nothing in there about when students are at lunch or off campus or on field trips that are school related. And she said this was overbroad and that within the next year, they would be working on those details.
Correct. So I believe that next year, there's limited use for non-instructional time. Students are allowed to use that for things like lunch and maybe field trips when they're non-instructional. But the following year in July 2026, that's when there is no use of it at all, except for what's allowable under in cases of emergencies or if a administrator grants permission under certain conditions. Obviously, if a student has an IEP that requires it or a licensed physician also puts in a recommendation for it. But otherwise, for next year, there will be allowable use during non-instructional time.
Although I think it's really, really important for students to have their cell phone when they're off campus in case something happens.
Yes, and I believe they are allowed to have their cell phones. We have nothing in the language that states that they'll be taken as of yet. I'm assuming that's something we'll continue to work on next year when the committee meets and kind of refines maybe a little bit of the language to make some of those things clear. But as it's written now, there's no language that says that the phones will be taken, just that they cannot use them during instructional time.
Yeah, I had questions and concerns along the same lines as Ellen. It's just still really broad. So I was hoping that there'd be more clarity because I know this is the board policy, but when the AR is brought, that will have more in there because it still doesn't address when students are using their own devices. If they're using our one-to-one tech, then they can't text their parents and each other during class. Or go on Pinterest or what else are these kids doing? Instagram, Lululemon.com, all those things during class that they could be doing on their phones, right? Or their iPads. So I think that needs to be addressed. And I don't know, then I'm getting in the future business. So I'll pause right there and say that. So I'm just hoping that we'll have more concrete about what this is going to look like for the upcoming school year.
I will follow up again. There still seems to be, I am concerned about the I would say like how violation of this policy will be treated at each school and in each classroom and with different students. I mean, there are, I think some stuff is ill-defined. For example, there is a line where it says, "Shall not be used in any manner which infringes on the privacy rights of any other person," and that pretty much bans all photos, videos at school, which I think is roughly appropriate. But I think students during this year will still be taking photos. So like at any given time, they could be in violation of this policy. So what does that mean? How do we communicate that to the parents and students? So that's just one example, and my colleagues have mentioned others.
So, and I think some of those fall under certain ed code around discipline, and it may fall under a different board policy around discipline about social media use and how that might be disciplined, and maybe that needs to be clarified further within this board policy as well, maybe within the AR. The board can decide not to approve, or wait or delay or wait for further information before we move forward with it if the board chooses.
I was on the cell phone committee, and a lot of that Ryan brought up, we talked about, and trying to make it uniform. So one teacher is like, "Oh, I don't really care," and another teacher's. So we talked about all that, and that will be part of the AR.
So then, the AR would cover a lot of these concerns that we have now.
Correct.
Okay, and so then we could pass this tonight as our board policy. And then when we get to the AR, we can make sure that all these other things are in there. Is that
Correct.
my understanding?
Correct.
Okay. Does that satisfy you, Brian?
What's the timeline on the AR?
We could, I would imagine at the earliest is July, but it would might depend on whether or not the cell phone committee needs to get together to finalize anything that they have been working on. I don't know if, oh, that's true. So it might be August as the earliest.
That'll be something that'll be discussed as soon as the cell phone committee can meet, which they're not going to do over the summer.
So we ran into this issue before when because usually we have a BP and an AR at the same time. And so the last time we had just the BP was the transportation policy, and then the AR followed later. And that, caused a lot of confusion and disruption and things. And so I would just hope that the sooner the better. I mean, if it was already discussed in the cell phone policy, and then if there's already language and CSBA for the AR, I would just hope that we could get it as soon as possible, so that we could also get it out to sites and to administrators and teachers and staff, so that they know how to implement this new policy, because it's going to be a big change for the high schoolers.
Yeah, and I mean, you took the words out of my mouth. I mean, I think that this needs to be effectively communicated. We have to go through some the most common scenarios where discipline or I would say student issues were raised. Last year we worked with the counselors, and again, I'm sure the cell phone policy, I'm coming late in the game in this, so I'm sorry if this has been discussed or you are ready to rock. But as of this moment, I'm very concerned on that we will not, if it's August 18th, that's school has started, and there's a lot of things going on. This will get lost, and then we'll have unequal treatment, unequal enforcement, confusion, and again, potentially some parents thinking that cell phones are banned, some students, some teachers, and it's just, I think we are setting ourselves up for a lot of miscommunication if we wait till August 18th.
Although it was stated that this is the policy for just 25, 26, and that the AR would follow from there. I mean, I have no dog in this fight. I don't care. I mean, we can vote on it or not, but I'm just trying to clarify some of the stuff that came up within the discussion of the cell phone committee. So.
Yeah.
I'm just looking at the
Please,
communication from Esmeralda when Trustee Webster asked that question, and she knows, she basically wrote the board policy is intentionally broad and based on CSBA model during the 25-26 school year. will focus on creating the implementation plan. So it's not going to be ready in July or August from my read of this. We'll be working on the logistics for off-campus lunch, 11th and 12th grade students, as well as guidelines for extracurricular activities. Our high schools will collaborate to develop a more detailed plan, which will be included in their respective student handbooks once finalized and ready for launch in 26-27. So I just want to be clear that this isn't something, in my estimation, these details are going to take more time to work out because there's going to be communication with the cell phone committee, with the site administrators, with those folks involved. That's my understanding of it. But unless Tony, there might be different understanding, but that's what I'm taking away from it.
Maybe I can, to bring this up to, how does this policy change with our current policy right now, besides like the timeline for 26-27, but like right now, this is roughly, and again, high level, I'm sure there's some small nuances, but high level, we have already banned cell phones at our middle schools and grade schools. And we already banned cell phones during classroom time.
It might depend on the school. I know, for example, the alternative eds have their own policies around cell phone use. But I think at the comprehensive schools, it might be a little different. So we'd have to kind of dive into exactly what that might look like at the comprehensive sites.
So, well, there's just not,
I think.
oh, I'm sorry.
No, you
Joanna-
already started.
Joanna was about to speak.
Well, I was just wondering, okay, so our next board meeting in July is on the 22nd. Can we at least have like a draft of an AR then? Because I feel like we do need to pass this policy. It's just my opinion, my one vote. We do need to pass the policy, but I also want to know if we can have like, I mean, because we know that the ARs, even this is a living document. So even if we have some type of like framework of how we're going to move forward, it just feels confusing if we're like changing the dynamics of the policy, which each, cell phone committee meeting that meets every month, that's really hard. If that's what the plan is, that's as like a school employee, I wouldn't like that to think like this is what it was in August and now it's October and it's this. It would just be nice to have something to like initially start with to see if that's working and then like use a continuous improvement model and continue changing as we're going along. But I don't want to just have nothing at the start of the school year.
Yeah.
So if she's gonna be back before the 22nd, at least if we can get some type of draft.
Should we think of it as more like a preliminary implementation plan rather than the AR that would go into the AR? Is that possible to do that? And then we would have those points that have been brought up that need to be in the AR, but have it called like an implementation plan or preliminary plan. Is that possible? Just so that we have something and bring it forward for that meeting in July. I agree. I don't think we want to go into August without having some kind of teeth in this.
I
or
think
detail.
the biggest reason behind this is to get equal enforcement in classrooms. Because that was brought up a lot, was that every teacher's different, every school's different. What does Petaluma High do that's different from CASA?
But that was talked about the first cell phone committee, because I was on the committee the year before.
Yeah.
I don't even know what year, let's see, 2025. So I was on the year before and we talked about, that was like the first thing was we talked about what each high school is doing, what each secondary school and the elementary schools. So I feel like that is already out there, but now it's the time for us to be like, okay, this is how we're gonna move forward. I mean, we already know all those things. I just don't want folks on the first day of school to be like, what is this?
How is this different?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
I absolutely agree because I mean,
Yeah.
again, how I read it is like, again, all photos are banned at school now. Like that is, and they're like, you can have like interpretations of this. You can, I just do not want to see again, enforcement on different levels or again, miscommunication with parents and staff. And so when it's just ambiguous and when we cannot send out clear and specific guidelines and consequences for breaking these guidelines, then I'm not comfortable with moving forward with this at this moment in time, because it still is on the books as our policies.
Go ahead, Tony.
So we currently don't have any policies around this because this is
We don't
fairly
have a
new.
policy.
So if there's no approval of this, then we'll just be operating without any kind of policy. That might be something to consider.
And then there's nothing to enforce.
Correct.
Yeah.
What about if we table this until the July meeting and then bring that back forward with like a preliminary plan? Or do we want to get this done now and then?
We need some sort of.
I would,
We need
I would
something
be,
now, I
I would be
think.
comfortable, I would be comfortable with us doing it in July. Matthew will be back then, and if Esmeralda is not back right when he is, then he can start working on it. Sorry, Matthew, wherever you are, he can start working on that. AR, because I feel like we have to.
Well,
have
and
some
also
people.
this is a preliminary plan and the implementation of the full plan would be the 26-27 school year. So that's, in that sense, it's overly broad. According to the state, we have to have something by 2026. So I'm not really sure. I mean, I appreciate all these questions. I think they're great. So to be honest, I'm not really sure how to proceed at this point.
I'll move to table the policy until the next meeting, or not the July meeting, not till Thursday.
I second until July.
Okay, all right. Any further discussion before we vote?
I just want a point of clarification on the move of the motion. Is this the next, the meeting we have scheduled, next regular meeting in July 22nd?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, so it'd be 3 weeks before school starts, somewhere around there.
The year rounds would have started already, yes.
Oh, The year round, but they're elementary.
Correct.
That's right.
K-8.
Oh, it's in Cherry Valley, okay.
But cell phones are already not allowed at all at elementary and middle or junior high, so.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so we are tabling the approval of board policy 5131.8 mobile communication devices until the meeting on July 22nd. Very good. Thank you. And thank you, Tony. All right. Comments from the public on discussion and information items? Seeing none? All right.
Because I noticed the PACS, I just don't know.
Yeah.
It's listed, right, PACS as a discussion.
As a discussion, it's not being passed tonight. We're not doing an
There'll be
action.
a discussion about it. But if we want to say another thing, we have to say it first. before the
Yes.
discussion.
Yes.
Okay.
You have
Can
more?
I come up again?
Yeah, you just have to give me another copy.
Thank you.
I'm new to this.
You're welcome. You know, that's why actually we put it as discussion, is so that we could get more input and also have us have the ability to talk about it also.
Okay, so, and is it still 3 minutes?
It's still 3 minutes.
Okay, well, I'm Susie.
You're like a new person.
I am. So earlier I shared why I support the proposed charter amendment, but I want to take a moment to offer an alternative solution if the board ultimately decides not to approve that recommendation. If Spanish remains part of the PACS curriculum next year, I believe we need to continue to face this hard and honest truth that we simply do not have the infrastructure right now, whether staff scheduling or student confidence, to make it work. And if we try to force it without a sustainable plan, we are risking putting students through yet another year of frustration. I believe we might have a solution worth exploring. Santa Rosa Junior College offers a middle school special enrollment program that allows 7th and 8th graders to take one college level course per semester, completely tuition free. This includes Spanish 1, which is offered online, taught by experienced faculty and aligned with both high school and college expectations. This could be an option for some of the students at PACS and families who want this meaningful language experience. And we would hope that we could trust in the junior college to deliver academic value. And at the same time, it could relieve the pressure of PACS to deliver a course that may not have the resources to staff confidently this fall. This isn't about outsourcing our responsibilities as a school. This is about buying us some time. Time to recruit the right teacher, time to rebuild student trust, time to create a Spanish program that students actually feel excited to be a part of. A formal or informal partnership between PACS and SRJC could help us pilot this option. Perhaps PACS could support students with applications or create a study period during the school day for those enrolled. Of course, this might not work for everyone, but for those who are serious about continuing Spanish, it would be a real rigorous path forward. We all want students to feel like their time is being used wisely, that they're being challenged and that they're supported. If we can't offer that in-house right now, we shouldn't continue to try to pretend otherwise. Let's be honest and let's be flexible. Thanks again for your time and your openness.
Thank you. That's great. Anybody else that'd like to speak? In a minute. Okay. This is a discussion. Ellen.
Well, I totally agree about the value of Spanish, but 55 minutes twice a week is not going to help students go into Spanish 2 at the high school. At the junior highs, they are, what, 2 or 3 times a week, depending upon if it's an A day or a B day. So they're getting enough Spanish taught by great teachers to then give them the opportunity to be able to go into Spanish 2 when they hit the high school. From my understanding is that the students that currently take Spanish at PACS, when they go into the high school, are in Spanish 1 anyway. So, and also in office hours, I heard a lot of complaints about Spanish. So, I love the idea of exploring the junior college, because then they'd be getting enough Spanish weekly to be able to take Spanish 2 when they get to high school. So that's my 2 cents.
So I have a rising 8th grader who's taking ASL right now through the JC. It's really hard. It's a lot of work. And that's not conjugating, listening, speaking, it's learning signs. And it is another language and it's a lot, and it's them starting their college, they're starting their college transcript. We also don't have a current MOU with the JC. We don't know if they even have space for enough kids in those classes. I mean, Caitlin, those classes fill up like this. So that could be something we could potentially explore with Ed Services at another point, but I don't know about for this coming semester. And because of all the implications with middle schoolers. I mean, it took 2 weeks for the JC to even sign off on her even being able to take the class. They have to evaluate every single kid's application when they're in middle school. There's a hold put on their account. So there are complications with that. So I just wanted to speak to that point.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I know that Tony, Maddie, Luann, and I had a good conversation when we were doing agenda review and figuring out if we wanted this to be a discussion item or an action item. And I think it was Tony's idea of working with Edgenuity to have a Spanish offering for the next year that people could take kind of during study skills, and the core teachers wouldn't need to know Spanish. The teachers would be there to support with the logistics of the program, but they'd be getting Spanish from a Spanish teacher through Edgenuity. Can you talk a little bit more
Yeah,
about that?
essentially, Edgenuity is our district-approved credit recovery program, but they do also offer world languages, UC-approved world language, so they're UC and CSU approved courses, as well as I believe they have what they call independent study courses where they would be a credentialed teacher online that would, connect with them once a week or so to tutor or to help support their language development, regardless of where they're at. So there's for new beginning students who are learning a new language, it's a great course that they could take independently during maybe the success course time. And then maybe the 8th grade year, they do the JC course, depending on what that might look like. So there's various options that we could explore. Of course, there's logistical things that we would have to look at, but that's a program that we already have and we already offer at sites. So it's something that could be explored as an option if the other options are not feasible.
Is this developmentally appropriate for middle schoolers? Because I know we have it at the high school right now.
I will have to check. I believe they have a junior high or middle school offering for Edgenuity, but I have to see if the course is kind of scaled down for junior high type students.
So I have a question for Susie and Tony. If you know whether this alternative, the Santa Rosa JC that you were class that you were talking about, you said it was for 7th and 8th graders, or it's just open? It's just Spanish 1, and that it could possibly be available for.
Yes, that they have a program.
Is it a 2-year program then, or 2 semester?
Well, I'm gonna put 8 on. One of the students in 8th grader did take.
Yes, we had a student do it this year, and it was the process that Joanna spoke of, because I helped fill out paperwork and wrote letters of recommendation, and this student you have to prove that you're capable of taking and you have the support at home to take a college level course.
Yeah.
Like they won't let any and every student join. So I had to write a letter for them to say that the mom is going to be a good mom in this course and the student is capable of taking the course. And they actually took it during our regular Spanish course. When we were doing another program, Tony looked at that program, the online program.
Was it Apex?
What?
Apex? Oh, you mean at the other junior high?
Yeah. So with your base program.
Yes.
Yes.
I
So
yes.
I don't think it's the one you were just.
Edgenuity. Yeah.
Then we're too advanced for our regular Spanish program. We're able to take this online program. And that did work. We had to pull them out. The hard part was the Spanish teacher was still our Spanish teacher, the PAX one, was still responsible for their grades in Aries because that computer's program couldn't access the grading piece of it. But I watched it quite a few times. The kids enjoyed that. I believe the student that took the Spanish at the JC took it for 1 semester because the first semester took so long to get him enrolled into it that he started spring semester. And he is also very fluent in Spanish.
But all JC language courses are
They're just
1
one
semester.
semester, yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
almost 4 times as fast as it
Yeah.
would be for at Kenilworth. Yeah. So much paperwork and that's another equity issue of
Totally.
needing parental
Totally.
involvement. Yeah. Right. That's a lot.
Is it what about conversational Spanish where they learn just, basic over a 2-year period?
So we've had conversational Spanish before we adopted this curriculum that the junior highs teach. And I believe that was probably 2-3 years ago. maybe. We finally got curriculum that the junior highs are actually teaching. So we had it beforehand, but I believe that.
The outcomes were about the same in terms of getting into Spanish 2.
I think it's also hard. We've had 6 teachers in 10 years. To get any momentum going in the program with the curriculum or program or competition.
Yeah, it's just, it's a toughie, you know, I agree with the speaker about that this is an accelerated program and to not have Spanish language and the value of world languages is.
Well, and I just think about like the timing. There's like
Yeah.
less than 2 months before school starts.
Yeah.
And I think like if we were having an issue with band, like if Sean Millard was like, look, these kids are not coming prepared to CASA, we wouldn't be like, no more band, right? We would find a way to increase the minutes, to do something so that the students, when they went to CASA, were ready for intermediate or advanced band. We wouldn't just take it out. And I just feel like we're being rushed into this decision. Again, it's June. And I think about the other things that we waited on. We actually had more time, like the changes to RSP, the Bell schedule, ethnic studies, all of those were delayed at least a year because we felt like we were rushed and they were not brought to us in June. And so I would just like us to explore more options. I spoke with, someone brought up looking at other junior highs. I ended up speaking with a parent from Cherry Valley actually who heard about this, and he was like, I wish we had Spanish at Cherry Valley. I mean, there's people wanting more language. They want their students to have more access to language. We look at the changing landscape. A couple people brought up the changing landscape of our town and our district to like take Spanish out completely, especially when it's been eliminated in the lower grades at that school. Not comfortable with that as well. And then just thinking about, so if we take Spanish out, how are we going to meet the cultural needs of the students who are coming and also the ones who maybe have gone to other schools who haven't had much interaction with people from cultures that speak Spanish. I want us to have more instead of less. And so I don't know if eliminating Spanish is the best option instead of making a way to increase the minutes, or like you're saying, maybe change it to conversational or something. So at least that the access is still there. I mean, we have parents here who chose the school for that reason. I mean, if your kids go to Meadow, I mean, I know because I live in that neighborhood too, they could just be walking to Kenilworth, but they're making a choice to drive across town to go to that school. And that's one of the reasons why they were choosing. And that's why, we want to have lots of diverse options. And so I don't want to at the last minute just do away with it. So.
Is there a teacher now, a Spanish teacher now that is, I mean, what's the,
So Ellen, sorry, real quick, can we direct that comment? That's actually one of the things I want to talk. I mean, Jason, where are we at for the hiring in this position? Is it open or closed?
It's not open right now. We just moved the teacher that we were sharing a teacher between CASA and McKinley, and they were 80% at CASA and 20% at McKinley, and they were just moved fully, like the sections at CASA opened up, so we have that teacher solely at CASA right now. So we don't have the .2 filled for McKinley at this time.
Right.
is it open?
No, it's not open yet. So.
Second question is there any ability to add an additional 50-minute periods per week to packs to, I would say, like have equivalent last week, and we haven't asked Tony, but like our last conversation we asked about like the equivalent minutes between between the middle schools on Spanish, the number of folks that do go into Spanish 2 or continue or just move into Spanish 1. So I'd be interested in hearing those numbers. But first, Jason, is there ability to add a 50-minute period to PAX to get in that extra, like I think roughly the equivalent time for Spanish, or is that?
So that, the part of your question that you're asking, like, could we staff that? Yeah, we could staff that, but the bigger part of that question, I think, is a programmatic one that you would ask Tony is how do you fit that in with the instructional minutes? Like, how does that match up with the instructional minute requirements for the students at PACS? So, because that, when I hear that question, that's what I'm hearing is how do we fit that in with everything
Is
else?
it
Yeah.
even a possibility, or like do we have like MOU with our labor partners? Like no way, like that's like at all possible, or because I think at PAX there's a short Wednesday. Is that right?
Is everybody?
Yeah.
Are you asking, I just want to make sure, maybe we're asking the same question about like the instructional minutes?
Right.
Like why, like
Why?
do we have to keep it at 55?
Can we
Can we
not-
increase it? Is there
It does
space?
seem that right now, this last year,
Mhm.
there was not enough instructional minutes for Spanish. I think that is,
It's always been.
I think that
it's
is
always
a
been
fact.
55
And we are
minutes,
setting up
right?
our. Oh, so I'm sorry, can,
Finish.
do you mind? Okay, so, I just want to finish up, just saying, like, I think we are setting up our students to struggle in this, in the amount of instructional minutes for Spanish right now, at PAX. So, Tony, I would like to continue to hear from you on, like, how does PAX compare to the other middle schools? And
Before Tony, I'm understanding your question a little bit better now. I think if you're talking about the feasibility of our increasing our instructional minutes and how that would work with labor partners, is that part of your question?
or just our bus schedule,
Yeah.
there are just like other things that are.
So, I mean, I know I can say one thing, like our past practice has always been is that at all of our schools, we work to, like you approve the minutes and we work with our schools and our labor partners to make sure that we are over the minimum requirements, but we also make sure like that we're not exponentially over those minimum requirements where we're having people do work far more. We want to make sure that we're over the line and we have enough of a cushion so that if something happened on a day, we still have some excess of instructional minutes. So we do, if you're talking about how do we extend that day, that would be something we need to discuss with our labor partners to extend it. If you're talking about adding 15 minutes with, I thought you were asking, how do we add 15 minutes within the existing day? That would be something I was going back to Tony about. How does that work with the rest of existing programming at
I mean,
school?
potentially, I mean, this is just, well, we give, it's not.
Discussion.
Right, it's discussion ideas right now, but like, I do want to, for Tony, like, I just like, so fundamentally, how does PAX compare to Kenilworth and Petaluma Junior?
So for example, Petaluma Junior offers 230 minutes a week of Spanish. So essentially a little more than 4 times what PAX offers.
We are discussing this
Right.
up here right now, so we're not taking comments from the public.
Well, you probably should, because you're discussing the wrong thing. You're talking about instructional minutes when you don't even have an open position for an instructor.
We may be changing the actual position that we'd be putting forward. So that's why we're discussing it. It would
So
be different from 55 minutes to considering doubling that. So that's why what we're discussing right now.
How many minutes at the comprehensive junior highs?
So like for the junior highs, because they're elective courses, so
Right.
students would choose it, but essentially have about 4 times as much, like for example, Spanish than currently at PAX.
4 times.
Yeah, so if we were to change, we would have to change the structure of how PAX operates, and they could probably speak to that a little bit better since they kind of know their schedules and how those things work. But in the other data that you were asking about how many students went on to Spanish 2, so for example, in this current year, 21 students at PAX, 16 of them took Spanish 1 and 5 of them took Spanish 2. The previous year in 2023, 2024, it was 14 students went to our high schools that from PAX, and 11 took Spanish 1 and 3 took Spanish 2. And the previous year, it was 19, in 2022, 2023, it was 19 students, 9 took Spanish 1 and 10 took Spanish 2. And that might be when McKinley had Spanish 1 through 6, and those kids matriculated up. But
Just a point of clarification, I think that it's 55 minutes twice a week So it adds up to 110. So it's only half, not
Twice
one-fourth.
twice as
Yeah.
long, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I know you guys are eager to chime in and to elaborate on some of that.
Sorry, yeah, can I ask, so if we're gonna have a, you know, just for.
Just calling out here, okay, thank you.
So the minutes for why PAX takes so few, and it's because our kids take 8 classes. The regular junior highs take 6. So in order for our kids to get more Spanish minutes, we have to cut 2 classes for us to let them take Spanish at the full capacity that they are at the regular junior highs. So the other junior highs take 6 classes, our kids take 8. So our minutes are spread a little bit more thin over our week than at the regular junior high when we are looking at scheduling. If that makes sense.
In terms of the time amount to like do Spanish, right? I almost think that it's like someone would have to pick to do study skills, or I forget what it's called, that and band or Spanish. Like it would almost be like 2 elective options if we want to do Spanish, right? That's how I'm feeling.
Probably the correct way. Yeah. Yeah. So they would take, like right now, our elective blocks are in the afternoon. So after lunch, they go to PE, band, Spanish, or their electives. And so most of those afternoons are split into 2 blocks. So it's an hour here and an hour there. They go home. Our afternoon is very short. We don't start our afternoon until 1:20 because we're on a campus with TK8 and we have to stagger our yard time and our tiny little cafeteria that's about this big to get 500 plus kids through there. So we're the biggest, so we go last at the end of the day, which causes our afternoon blocks to be much shorter.
So I think it's a question for you, but also for you in terms of this being part of the charter. So I guess part of the issue for me is that this is part of the charter and that it seems like it has should have a different weight than an elective. In terms of it being, am I making sense that it's?
In terms of like the allocation of minutes?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that it should have the same as a core class. What are the minutes for your core classes?
Sorry.
I should be asking
Laura.
Tony. I can
The
ask
minute-
Tony.
Well,
Yeah, just for the folks who are online.
The charter states that the kids will take Spanish, music, and another elective. It doesn't state that they're equal to core classes, I guess. So,
But we're
as-
talking about cutting it
yeah.
from the charter, which
No, I
is
know.
requiring the Spanish.
Right.
That's where all of
Yeah,
this
yeah.
is coming from. So that's where my issue
So the
is.
core classes have more minutes.
So what are the minutes? That's what they're asking.
I think it's like
We have
like a
2 core
hundred.
classes from 8:35. I'm not the math.
Yeah.
8:35 to 10:25 to like a block. So what is that? Almost 2 hours.
It's a little shy of
Okay.
2 hours.
And we do that twice before lunch.
The kids rotate through the 4 subjects throughout the week. So it is more. We've been fighting this battle for a very long time with the afternoons being squished because all 3 of them are in the charter. So we're all for the solutions, the ideas you guys have come up with. Making Spanish optional would be a good one if we can staff it and find a way to do it. I'm the one who makes the schedule every year. I put it in Aries and do all of that. And it's always changing because we have to change our staff. Almost every year I've had to change the schedule to fit whenever the staff can work, whether it's Spanish or music or PE. But I do think that something that hasn't been said about one of the other issues with Spanish is that forcing kids to take a language versus having buy-in with where kids want to take Spanish. So the kids at Kenilworth, for example, they choose that. They're not made to take it. they're not made to take wood shop, they're not made to take robotics, they get to choose their elective. And so I think that we might find more success in a Spanish program if the kids had some buy-in and that they wanted to take it. Same thing with band and any other elective, right? You don't want to make a kid take band or whatever it is, art, unless it's something that they really want to do.
I think though, by applying and agreeing to go to PAX, you are buying into Spanish.
Well, yes.
Because that's what it says. And that's what
Yes.
it's been for however long.
But I don't
You're
think
also
all of
saying
them
that you're going to take accelerated math, accelerated English, you're going to take Spanish, you're going to, like, that's what it says. And so I think that's my resistance, is that's what it's clearly stated. And it says multiple times, I'm looking at this part of the charter that is included in the agenda. It has all types of things around this accelerated course option. So then for us to say that actually we don't want to do this, it feels like we haven't been honest with the incoming families or
I agree.
families who chose to
I
send their
agree.
kids there starting back in kindergarten,
Mhm.
you know? Yeah, so I think you actually are agreeing to take Spanish if you.
No,
do the
I,
PAX.
I think if we could have them all take it and have the minutes that it should have, then I think it would be a different conversation, but that doesn't exist unless we X music or we X the other electives, which a lot of kids also come for. So that's sort of, we're kind of stuck, so to speak.
I'm not seeing the other ones listed in the charter, though. I think that's.
The other
That's
elected?
that's my concern. Like, those are
Yeah,
not
I think
explicitly
Spanish is
listed.
the only thing that's there.
No,
It says PE, music, it just says music. It's very general. Students accept
Spanish.
course Spanish.
And
Yeah,
one-
it's all listed in there.
It is all this.
I think it says one.
And so I forgot now, because there's been so many folks speaking up here, talked about, should it be given more weight? Should we move minutes? I think it's Caitlin, you're saying, should we move minutes from one thing to another? I don't know. But I don't think we should just cut it out. Just my opinion.
Okay, all right. Brian?
So just, I think, so in sum, I mean, one, it's thanks staff. Thank you so much for all your work on this and bringing us different options and laying this out. This is important because it does seem like this past at least a couple of years in particular, it hasn't been working for the students. And it is, we're trying to balance so many different things. At the end of the day, thank you to the parents for coming here, providing your feedback and opinion. We are trying to, or I am trying to do the right thing, so that we have students that are, successful, and we are setting them up to, again, progress in high school and move ahead and, be, as academically successful as they want to be in each area. So, but like from my vantage point, what we're doing right now is like not working. It seems that we at least need 55 more minutes for Spanish, if not another 110 per week. While at the same time, it seems like historically speaking, the student success period is also important due to the accelerated nature and just having more interaction with staff and being able to catch up, or almost having like teacher hour or like hours,
Yeah.
right? So I think that's also important. So it's like the juggling. So I just want to let everyone know, like we are, or I hear you. We want to do the right thing for student success, and so I just think, what is the next step?
Is Spanish an elective? So it's in the afternoon?
Yes.
And so how does Spanish compare with music as far as choice, as far as kids choosing?
Right now,
Well, Spanish has always been required.
Oh,
It's never
okay.
been
Yeah.
optional.
Yeah.
Music has, we've played with being optional at various times, whether it was zero period, after school. And then this last year, everybody took it. It was no longer optional. In the very first 4 years of PAX, it wasn't optional. All kids took some sort of music. McKinley was much smaller then, and we pulled from McKinley's music teachers, which was easier to do. And then we lost. we
Now you're
lost-
sharing a music teacher.
Now
No.
we share with Ken,
No.
Petaluma High, Petaluma High,
Hi, junior.
Evelyn.
Yeah,
Wherever.
Evelyn.
This year you did, but not
Okay.
next year.
Or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And so now that this last year was the first year music was required for the first time in a really long time. And in order to make that work, we had Evelyn and marimba paired together, but Spanish has always been required from the beginning.
But yet
So-
it's in the afternoon
It is in the afternoon.
when the other electives. Okay.
So then it sounds like lunch is part of the problem with increasing the instructional minutes. If we move that around in some creative way, is this a Jason
No,
question? or-
That's a,
I know
our
we
new
have a new
principal.
principal.
But I will-
That's what I'm thinking.
I will tell
You know, I was
that-
just thinking that if that's the roadblock to increasing the amount of minutes for Spanish, it seems like that's really a priority that we should look into. I don't
Yeah,
know. I have no idea.
yes, we have tried to shorten our lunch. And we have always gone back because parents don't want the big kids on the yard when their little kids are at lunch or somewhere
Mhm.
on the yard. So by the time our big kids go out to the yard, all the littles are already back in their classrooms.
Do we have more? Yes, Tony, did you have something?
So, I mean, from my point of view, it seems there's not just a staffing issue, but a structural issue. And to provide the kind of Spanish that we may want would require us to structurally change packs. So really, we think about it, it's one, we either approve their, as they have asked to amend their charter with the caveat of exploring a way to create a structure that allows, spend the year allowing us to create that structure, or not approve it and still spending that year to create a structure where we can, increase and enhance, ensure better quality of what the PAC's current charter states, or some kind of hybrid option that allows students to have that student success course at the same time, options for that Spanish. I think the challenge is to the timing that we're in right now for us to change structurally, because we don't know what that might ultimately be, and if union, labor conversations need to happen if there are significant structural changes, especially to the working conditions of their staff, as well as exploring what those minutes might look like. And then what would they have to give up if they don't structurally change too much? I think is not something that we can maybe feasibly do in the next few days or in
Yeah.
the summer.
Yeah,
so
well,
that-
it wouldn't be very
yeah.
good. Yeah, Jason.
I know that there've been some questions about and we talked about it last time, about some of the staffing issues that we've had with Spanish. If we look back historically until 2022, we were employing a full-time Spanish teacher, and that's much easier to get somebody that wants a full-time job. When we eliminated, and that person was 60% at the elementary and 40% at PACS. And when we eliminated the elementary part of it, and we're now looking for a 0.4, finding somebody that's wanting to do a 0.4 in the afternoons every day, or like multiple days a week, is hard, which is why we have been relying on trying to pair it up with secondary positions, so that like at other schools. So this last year, somebody that was at CASA for 60% and then PACS for 40%. So that really is, when we say there's staffing issues, it has to do with the amount and time of day that it fits in. Makes it more challenging than it used to be when we had a full-time person that was there the whole day and could work around the individual schedule of the program. So that's the changes and why it's more difficult now than it had been maybe in previous years, be from 2022 and earlier.
Why was Spanish eliminated from the K-6?
I can't answer that question. I'm sorry. I don't know.
So would it be something that we could look into also? So I have two questions. First of all, for that, to reinstitute that Spanish in the elementary, I have no That seems like it would be awesome. Um, and, but just look into the feasibility of that. I know expense and, you know, all kinds of things, but also I'm just concerned. I agree it's structural. I agree that we should look into all of this, spend a year. I mean, just personally, I feel that that would be a really great thing to look into. It's 10 years old. It's a great time to kind of look at it and see how to.
Can we update this coming year?
And you update,
Or
that's the
review,
other
I guess.
piece, is that if we update it at the end of the year, and so it seems like I really hesitate to change the charter at this point if we're still looking at a structural change, that alone would kind of like discombobulate everything. And then to just, you know, keep it as best as we can at this point. And then when we look at the charter again, it seems like a perfect timing for the restructuring, but.
I'd say if we do move forward with that, I would just ask for support from our cabinet in helping whatever, if we are going to continue with Spanish this year, that it hasn't been like the last 10 years, because that is hard for our students, and it's hard for us as teachers who are with our kids every day to help them navigate that. So if we do continue, I mean, you're the boss. We'll follow your lead. I just ask that we have full support from the district from day one to help make sure that's implemented in a very cohesive, strong, supportive way for our kids.
Seems very reasonable. Anything else?
I think also just, oh,
She's here. Yes. So I have some thoughts. As a Spanish teacher at my core, floating the idea of conversational Spanish over 2 years it's great. That's a great idea. But it's not a great idea if we're going to stick to our charter and be accelerated and we were pushing those kids into an A through G approved course at a high school. No bueno. Okay. So, and I say that having taught all the way through, you know, AP Spanish, traveled with kids to Spain and Costa Rica. So I have some experience and knowledge in that. But it sounds like we're not being true to our charter, even offering music the way that we're offering music and Spanish. And I think it's a reasonable accommodation for this year. And it's an actual response to students' actual need versus sometimes as adults we have this idea, right? It's like we just, oh, like this is such a brilliant idea. But we want to pull the kids along, but the kids are telling their teachers, this is not working. So rather than do something that's not working, because we know we're going to change it, we're going to make it better, we're going to come back stronger, right? Why not go with the teacher's suggestions, recommendations based on the surveys, parent surveys, student surveys, and teachers who have been doing the work, and knowing that it's coming up for renewal, and look at maybe at that time the structural change. I can feel, and I've only met them like at 6 o'clock. I can feel the apprehension and the tension and like the worry that is emanating from my team. And so I ask you to consider that. And I know we hold this ideal up here of what we want, but if the kids are telling us what's not working, I think we can take the time to listen to them and make a choice that's going to actually improve their immediate outcomes. And I know there's going to be families that are disappointed that Spanish is not going to may not be offered. But I think we can say, we're going to try this model this time, and then we're going to innovate, come back stronger, and see what we can do. And then I don't know about Petaluma City Schools and the articulation and agreements like with from, you know, with the junior colleges. But I have been in districts where we've had that model. I've used Edgenuity before. Well, like 3 iterations before, it's been through so many name changes. But that is something that could be viable for us. And, but I just
I did
asked.
write a schedule, just a mock with it as an option that coincides with the high school schedule to share a teacher 2 days a week. Just.
Yeah.
Just because that's what my brain does.
Yeah.
We're on
So-
summer vacation.
Yes.
Well, also,
Just to
this,
pick another.
the students have really indicated a desire for the student success class. Is that true?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
But I think that's because over the last 2 years, we haven't had a rigorous program where before we did, like Tony just read out the numbers of the last 3 years. 3 years ago, we did have students accelerating. I mean, we also know that not every kid's going into math 2 or into advanced English. So it's like, I think we also need to look at how we've been doing it structurally. And like you're saying, if the kids are telling us like they're not going into Spanish 2, it might be an issue with the program, not the Spanish itself. And again, if we have parents who are either moving from one district to ours for this, have chosen out of their home district to go to McKinley for this. First, they got Spanish removed 1 through 6. Now they're gonna have it removed 7 through 8. And if we look at the nature that the charter was written in, it was written by our superintendent, who's again not here, somewhere out there. It was to honor the culture of the dominant people group there at the time, of the parents and families who were at McKinley. So then you're just gonna take it away. Like, I have serious reservations about that as well, especially in this political landscape. So.
Laura wrote a beautiful schedule that allows music and Spanish to be optional, and yet still have the required student success course. And I feel like if we're gonna update things next year anyways, and we're hesitant to get rid of Spanish, I think optional music and optional Spanish, it would be taught at the same time. I promise it'll work, Jason. It would allow the families who want their student to take Spanish to be able to do that. While the ones who are a little jaded by it right now to opt in to music. And then again, update next year with whatever we feel like this needs to go. I do have to mention though, our Spanish program has had trouble from the very beginning. And it hasn't been just the last couple of years. And I think that there's room for improvement, and I think we can do that. I do know we're pushed for time. So if we don't want to approve the amendment we're asking for, then maybe look at the optional music and optional Spanish for this coming year so that people can kind of choose their own path, and then we can make it more required for the following year. I think that is going to keep the peace better than telling our 8th graders that they're all going to have to take Spanish again next year.
And I think we can also honor the cultures, because we have families from all different backgrounds, and we don't necessarily have to offer that language class in order to honor their culture. Does that make sense? I mean, because we're respectful and honoring all students and their backgrounds.
Sorry, bring it back to the board discussion. I just I feel like I am taking a pause because like we're hearing that this has been an issue for a while. I have not heard about this issue. Been on board for 6 years. Okay, but office hours versus bringing it up here as it has never been brought up as a discussion item or especially an action item. And so that's why I'm just like, well, what has been going on? I would want more data and more information than just hearing it's been an issue. I don't know what the issue was. And then I did ask about how are we going to continue meeting the very cultural and educational needs of the current incoming PAC students didn't, with the Spanish being eliminated, and didn't get a response on that as well.
Okay. Right. Yes, Ryan.
Yeah. Quick question, for the optional schedule, how many instructional minutes would be for Spanish per week on average?
Well, this is one version.
It's one version. Yeah, I know.
It would be, I just did it with it as the same, but somebody, I don't remember who mentioned making, I don't think it's possible, but I would try. I don't think the puzzle doesn't quite add up in my brain, but the only way that I would see adding extra minutes, even if it was optional, would be like if it was somehow paired with music as a choice, and then maybe they got some additional Spanish instructions somehow on another day when they would have had student success maybe. But again, we're not, the schedule for PACS is very complex because it's not like at a high school where it's an A-B schedule. There's 6 or now 7 periods. The teachers all go into these slots and they have a lot of staff, and we don't have that. And so our afternoons, we've even done things in the morning sometimes with electives because that's what worked. It's very challenging to schedule it out basically, because if those kids are there, we have to figure out where the rest of them are and who's with them and what's being taught. And it's not as cookie cutter as like when the high schools make the bell schedule and then everything slots in, if that makes sense. It doesn't. Sorry,
Absolutely not
but
then.
once the schedule is made and they know when the periods are, right? You assign teachers certain periods, you know how many teachers you need, and then they have off periods and then it goes together. Ours doesn't operate like the same in the morning as it does in the afternoon. It just doesn't, because we don't have enough staff. I've imagined what it would look like if we did it the other way, and it doesn't work because we don't have enough
I think,
staff.
Thank you.
I think this is why I also am pausing, because I don't have the schedule in front of me. I don't see the instructional minutes. I feel like I have nothing to compare it to over time. Where do we go wrong? What were the different teachers? Like, and then also like, what are the financial implications? If we make these changes, are we going to fall below our 3%? Are we going to have someone, sorry, I don't remember, brought up like issues with our labor partners? Like, what are all the implications of this? If we take away Spanish and increase something else, I don't know, is there a financial implication in that as well? Does it speak to anything in the SIPSA, to the LCAP? I don't know.
Yeah, so it sounds like a few of the ideas could have financial implications on our general fund. As it's been mentioned, we currently are barely meeting our 3% reserves, which is legally required by the state. So any changes in staffing at this point can have impact on the budget that we have not adopted yet. And, we're still waiting for the state to see what funding is going to look like on July 1. So I would caution the board to make any changes right now that could have a financial impact starting on July 1.
Okay. No, we're not taking things from the audience because we.
While this was going on, I think it's just a brief point. While we're vacillating with what Jason has shared about their.
Can I ask you who you are?
I'm an incoming parent for a rising 7th grader.
So you're not a teacher.
I am not.
Okay.
So I was just curious, just for this, if it also can be raised, if there isn't a teacher in place, if there were no changes that were made, hearing the struggles to staff a partial section, what would happen if there couldn't, let's say nothing was changed or the optional model were to move forward and there weren't a teacher identified to cover the section? I was just curious what would happen in that case, absent the charter being revised. I'm just, for the audience,
Okay.
I think it's a valuable
All right.
question.
Thank you. Thank you.
If this is being.
Thank you. Okay. Anything else? Boy, this is interesting. So I think we need to.
Well, this is a discussion only, information only. So
Discussion only,
if there's
so
any,
but let's try to figure out where we are. So we need to decide this by the next meeting.
by Friday, I believe.
The Friday meeting.
Yes.
The Friday meeting. So do we need to change this amendment? Let's say we decide that we'd like to also add that option that you were talking about. Have music and Spanish and making it optional and figuring out how to do that through Ingenuity or whatever. And then have the study skills. Do we need to change your charter amendment in order to reflect that?
I should probably ask Tony.
Well, that's what I was, but they
Oh.
wrote it, so.
Well, Tony worked with them on it.
I mean,
Yeah.
technically, they.
I was asking him.
Yeah,
first.
technically, they submitted an amendment for particularly to eliminate Spanish and make student success course. So essentially, if we were to adhere to the process, we would have to revise that to be that amendment, to reflect that in the amendment. So it would be submitting a revised amendment to their amendment.
Okay, revise it. Okay. Can I have a discussion about that, about whether we want to move forward with doing that? Or bring this forward as is to be voted on Friday?
I kind of appreciate Joanna's comments about needing more information, about looking at the schedule, about how do those students succeed if they take Spanish 2 when they get to the high school. Are the students that are taking Spanish 2 native speakers? So that I'd be really interested in that as well.
I just want to point out that by making classes optional, meaning you may have to increase staff, and I would strongly advise us to not do that at this point.
Would the Edgenuity edition, if it were to be in study skills, would that have an additional cost, do we think?
It depends, but I wouldn't imagine, as long as there's a teacher that can operate the modules for the program, not necessarily, but it may just depend on ultimately what does that structure look like?
And the charter have language, the may versus shall. The district may allow an option between math and, nope, everybody has to take math, I'm sorry. Music and please do not remove math. But can it something like that, giving maybe changing the language, but giving more time to have answers before a final decision is reached?
Can you say that again? I don't.
Was falling on the may versus shall.
Okay.
The district may have or may allow optional
The
music.
option for music and Spanish.
Yeah.
I mean,
Fair.
the way I read it, then we wouldn't have to change the charter at all, and I might be reading it wrong. It says the PACS at McKinley seeks to provide music and a student success court and Spanish language instruction. So like seeks is already kind of getting us into
May.
that nice nebulous area. So maybe the solution is to not amend it if that's what the strategy we're going for.
So then we would be just amending it to not have it required is basically the question that we're raising right now.
What I'm reading right now, it would strike 4 words, right? And then, so instead we just would not strike any, we wouldn't have an amendment, but we'd have to figure out how we're going to implement offering Spanish and music and study skills or student success. Too many S words.
And I would love to see Tony a schedule, the current PAC schedule, with the minutes as well for each of the classes. Yeah, I think that would be helpful as well.
Is it possible to have all of this by Friday?
No, there's no way. I'm being realistic here. By Friday, if we want to post something in the board agenda, that means you're going to be staying up all night tonight, Tony, and putting it together.
I mean, if
So-
it's- in regards to the schedule, it's already posted on their website.
I know, but I'm just,
Couldn't find it on the website.
it's, if we want to have an intense conversation around this, which it sounds like we probably do, we should schedule a study session, right? I mean, that's kind of what the next step would be, is to do a study session. And we're not going to be able to schedule a study session and have all this data available this week. So it's just not realistic. If we want to try to do something in July to look long-term, that doesn't solve their problem
Doesn't solve
because
their problem. Or
they,
hiring a Spanish teacher.
they need to
That's what we decide.
move forward with implementation of this modified charter. So the questions in the conversation are great to look at this data and have a bigger conversation around this. But if we need to make a decision now, we're going to need to make a decision now. And we're not going to have, we may have a little bit more data we could present, but not much. And, you know, one of the options for the board is to think about piloting Edgenuity and letting them see in the student success class, kids can take Edgenuity, but that really kind of flies in the face of Trustee Pond saying, everybody, this is what we agreed to. Everyone is going to take Spanish, right? I mean, is that what you were saying? I mean, is that?
Yeah, I think that's
Right.
what people think when they're signing up for PACS. Also, when I'm thinking about the student success course, because I also don't know if there's going to be a curriculum for that. So if some people are doing the student success course curriculum, some people are doing study hall, and some people are doing Spanish, is that feasible for a teacher either? There's just so many unknowns, because again, this really is, 2 weeks ago was the first that we heard of this. Yeah.
Okay. Wh- Okay, so we need to move on because we have something else. We have a couple of other things on the agenda. So right now we need to my understanding is that or at least my opinion is that we need to move on this on Friday with either, as presented, because there's really no time to amend it or think about how to fund it, things like that. Those are things that we can talk about definitely going forward. I definitely think this needs a study session. So I don't know. I want.
So then is it
everybody's feeling on that.
safer-
Ryan, can you give me your feeling about that we just need to move on Friday?
I mean, we can. I mean, I think we've heard quite clearly that Spanish is broken, and we are, we are right now at 110 minutes, not causing stress and potentially hurting academic success, academic curiosity of another language. So I don't want to continue on with like a broken what I think has been identified as broken right now. So I would say I think from my vantage point, I think there needs, if there's Spanish, it needs to be at least an additional 55 minutes per week to get it closer to and see if that is a middle ground. And then I would like to see what the current class schedule is, what it's been in the past, and then also because this year music was the first, mandatory music year. So it'll be the last 2 years of class schedules. Hopefully that's not too hard to dig up. And then, and then Amanda, what would be the cost of the optional?
So Superintendent Carlamagno just said that there's no time between now and Friday because it all has to be posted. And so,
I mean, these are questions that can be answered. I mean, I don't think any of this, I think we move forward.
so you want this to be
I just-
sent to us
Yeah, or just or at the next board, or on Friday,
on Friday when
we hear.
Well, I guess my question is, do we just move forward on the amendment and not try to do anything else to the amendment? Is that clear? No? Just do it on Friday, up or down?
Up to you. You're the president.
I'm the president. No. No, this is a board decision.
So are we voting on Friday?
No, we're not
That's what I was,
voting on it.
that's what I
Well,
was
okay, so what
confused about.
I've
Okay.
heard is that from me and other
Okay.
people, is that maybe we could amend the amendment
Okay.
in order to add it as an option. Music and Spanish as an option. But then Caitlin pointed out that it's kind of already there. And so we don't need the amendment. And then other things have been brought up. And so it sounds like we need a lot more information and we don't have time in order to do that, so that we can get something to PAX before school starts. They need to know now. So I guess my question is, I feel like we just need to have, this will be on the agenda and then we vote as an action item on Friday.
But Amanda, we can get the cost from you.
Yeah, turn your microphone.
So we can get the cost?
Wait, can this be?
We have the schedules from the past 10 years. Odds are Tony might not have those because Laura does them. So we have all of our schedules, which will have the minutes breakdown. Because we have our minutes breakdown, there is no added cost because we've been told year after year that PAX is allotted 5 staff members, full-time staff members. So we have always held to 5 full-time staff members and never deviated minutes outside of that. So we have all of those schedules and we're happy to send them to you guys, or we're happy to send them to Tony and Tony can send them to you guys. And if our numbers are correct, like they've always been, because the optional of music and optional of Spanish, we've worked that, and I think I sent it to Jason, to be 2 days a week full in the afternoon, which is still only 1 full-time staff member. So we have worked through all of those as us, because that's what we do every year for PAX. So if you want those, we're happy to send it to you. Okay.
All right. Any other comments? All right. Moving on. Whew. I skipped this. I'm sorry. The 2025 CSBA Conference and Board Professional Development discussion.
I almost forgot about that.
I
I was
know.
really so focused on
totally did.
this. Mostly, I just want to check in with our trustees to see if there is any interest, and I understand that there's budget constraints. So we won't do anything immediately, but just wondering if there's any interest in us moving forward with investigating CSBA conference this year.
For me, every single year I get talked into it. This year it's going to be great. I'm done wasting our money for me going. Like, if everyone else wants to go, I won't stop them, but I don't need a hotel room for 2 or 3 nights for mediocre people talking about AI. That's how I feel. I won't hold back. No.
However, that is where I met Hardy from Footsteps to Freedom. So there are some good things.
There
that
are
come out
some
of it.
gems, but
So, yeah, but
I don't know. I just think financially, maybe we should skip it this year.
what is the cost-ish? Because we don't have to fly this year. It's in Sacramento.
I have not seen an invoice or a quote, but we can look up the costs
my
real quick.
guesstimate because every year they mess up the credit card and the rooms, so we always have to end up putting it on our card. I would guess it's without flights, it would probably be about $1,000 per
That's
trustee.
what I was thinking, about 1,000, especially because it's in Sacramento. You don't have to stay.
Yeah, we could actually drive on Thursday morning early and then just have one night overnight to
Right, so
Friday.
maybe in Sacramento it would be less, but then in the years where we do have to fly, it's more. So on average.
Yeah.
I do recommend Ryan if you haven't been.
Ryan,
definitely go.
That is true. I did miss it last year, so if this is part of my hazing as the so I will. I am interested, but again, I'm defer to.
We'll come to bond with you. Like, that's been the most valuable part, with like the board bonding, but I don't know that we all need to go to the conference, but we can
Go and join him.
just for dinner. Yeah.
I do think it would be really valuable for you to go.
Okay.
They have new board member orientations and things like that. But they have interest. It's just that
And it's nice to meet other
It's
board
neat.
members from
Yeah,
similar
yeah.
districts or nearby districts. Like, I don't think it's totally invaluable. I think for me personally, 5 years, I can skip at least this one.
Yeah.
So I think the answer is yes, we would like to explore the
Okay,
attendance.
we'll investigate the cost and get back to the trustees.
Yeah, and I feel like I don't have to go again either. So if you're like, oh, it's feasible for this many people to attend, then then we can send Ryan and then the rest of us will draw straws to go. Yeah.
We'll get some cost estimates, so we at least have an idea around that for sure.
Yeah.
Best buddy.
Best buddy. Okay. Do you need anything else, Luann, on that?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
I can investigate that for sure.
All right, future business. Anybody have future business?
I think between budget and LCAP and PACS and cell phones, we have a good amount for the summer, but I just don't want to add more to staff in the very short term, at least.
Well, I do have a specific about two of those things that you mentioned. I think we've already talked about this though, for the cell phone policy, just more specifics. And then I would also love an update on the technology policy or just what we're doing either next month or in August as we move into the school year of implementing this. I do not see the cell phone policy is not going to work if we allow students to bring their personal devices to school. It will not. And so we're already spending so much money. I'll call my own kid out because she ain't gonna watch this. Her computer has been under her bed for 2 years. So we paid $500 or whatever for that computer to get dusty up under her bed. That's also other students as well. And so either we're gonna save the money and just go halfway with the policy, or we're gonna go full on and get the most use of these students' one-to-one devices. So.
Okay, just want to again, mention that, or request an update on the Bell schedule, rollout and, how that's going and have an opportunity to discuss it. So.
Did you know when you all wanted to have that discussion?
What do you mean discuss the bill schedule?
I
I'm
mean, we
confused.
have a new Bell schedule, you know, obviously, we all know this, but
Yes, we do.
for other folks, like we have, I just want to hear how it's, you know, the classroom scheduling, informing our labor partners, hiring, and just like, I just want to see where we are in and then how do we, you know, again, inform students and parents, and if there's any like just lingering questions. We have a new schedule. I want to see if we have an opportunity to discuss and make sure there's no misinformation or issues, or like reduce the number of issues in the first couple of weeks of school.
Yeah. Would July work for that?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think some of we have a meeting in July, right?
Yeah, July 22nd. I mean, yeah, I think if
But the
we,
implementation doesn't actually, do you
No,
have
no,
something that's like the first 2-week update to see how it's rolling out? Or you want it before we start?
So what I'm hearing, just for me to check my comprehension on this, is that like having a report of where we are to date. For example, I came to you earlier in the year and said, wow, this is gonna be hard. We're gonna have to hire 50% more secondary teachers. Like, how are we doing in that? How are we doing with working with our labor partners, with identifying how we're going to do the rooms and all of, there's a lot of things that we can report about how we're setting up. We won't be able to report on implementation, obviously, until after August. And I would say probably makes sense to do something in October when we can see how things are going. But I'm just hearing from you, Ryan, and you mentioned it before, just more periodic updates about how things are going along the way, wherever we are. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. And again, what are the key differences for parents and for students from last year, this year, make sure we are communicating those, identifying and communicating those before the start of the school year.
So there have been updates that have gone out like from the schools, but were you looking something like beyond that, like what's already gone out to parents? Or is there like a piece? I feel like there's something unspoken. Like, is there something specific that you're looking for that hasn't already been done?
I just want to make sure that we are going into this new school year with eyes open and identifying again, just like hearing an update on, I think moving around the classrooms and to make sure that, again, folks are used to doing things one way. We have a new schedule. And just want to ensure that we have, good communication to staff, good communication to parents and students. Like,
Okay.
and just,
Yeah, I could be ready for something for you in July I mean, there's a whole programmatic side that I think Tony would be able to give you more information as we go into the year, but I could give you an update from the labor partner side, that whole piece, and our hiring side. I can give you an update in July.
You know, it does occur to me, it would be nice to know if what classes through CTE that are being added, if there are, because we have those 7 periods. So you guys could give a dual report.
We would love that.
I bet you would.
see, this discussion is already producing results.
Okay, and I'm gonna add on to that, but for like November, Tony, okay? Because I know a lot of this was to give access to our students with disabilities and our multilingual learners, so it'd be interesting to see how many more of those students are now able to take an elective or a language that weren't able to previously. Or a CTE class, yeah. So. But in the fall, like almost the winter. Yeah.
All right. Board members, anything else? Okay, I call this meeting adjourned.